All right, guys, welcome back to the Pain-Free Golf Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Russ. Today, we've got a special guest, Mike Lombardi. Mike Lombardi is part of the performance team at Whoop Fitness Tracker. Mike's going to kind of break down what Whoop is, kind of the origin story, and kind of go from there. So, Mike, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining and spending a little time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So, Mike, like we kind of talked about, maybe kind of tell the listeners a little bit about your background. Maybe kind of tell them your journey through maybe your education. What led you kind of into the performance space, and ultimately how you landed with Whoop.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is actually in rowing. So in high school, I played basketball and I rowed 6'7". So I rowed it at Princeton University, and then fitness has always been really important to me, and finding the most effective ways to train and understand the body. So I always was doing a lot of self-experimentation in college and seeing kind of how can I get the most out of doing the least kind of thing, maximizing time effectively.
Yeah.
And, after college, I stayed at Princeton and coached rowing there for, I think it was about 3.5 years. And at the same time, it's also where the U.S. Olympic team for rowing trains.
Yep.
So my wife was actually on the team. We met in college, but she was on the team and I was always around that. So basically from 2012 to even through 2018, I've been working with Olympic athletes for, London and Rio and even up to whenever Tokyo happens.
Yeah, right.
So that's during that period of time, I've traveled around the world. So basically 2014 to 2016, I traveled around the world, worked with some of the best physiologists, really on, New Zealand, a lot of people on the West Coast, UK, just understanding different philosophies in sports science. And it became very apparent that what we were doing, or just collectively in the US, we're very far behind of kind of what other people are thinking. So
yeah, absolutely.
I had created this sort of, let's call it like fluid periodization, right? Within endurance, you want to build capacity over time.
Yep.
And a lot of people just go with the volume approach. And effectively what we looked at was, how many hours of sleep were you getting, using SpO2 monitors for blood oxygenation, urine color, mood, if it was women, cycle tracking, things like that, to then augment training plans, right? So it's kind of a super manual way of doing what Whoop does very seamlessly now. But so when I moved to Boston for business school in 2016, and Whoop launched in late 2016, early 2017, it was literally in the backyard. It was, a quarter mile from where I was going to school.
Sure.
I said, I gotta get this, and then after that, how do I get involved? So once I graduated, I joined Whoop in 2018, and have been working with pro teams, college teams, pro athletes, military divisions.
That's
since.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great story. And I think, your background in working with some of the best and seeing at the highest level, and then hopefully bringing it down to now the general population and the general public. I mean, let's be honest. The general public can benefit from a lot of this stuff as well, right? Not only just elite
Absolutely.
athletes, but I think the general public, weekend warriors, things like that, they can definitely benefit from a lot of the things that Whoop is doing. So, maybe Mike, tell us, for the listeners who maybe aren't familiar with Whoop, maybe tell the listeners a little bit about what it is, how it kind of tracks a lot of the stuff that it tracks, and kind of go from there.
So Whoop is a wearable device you can wear pretty much anywhere on your arm. Just has to be in close contact with your skin. So we're constantly pulling data 24 hours a day, 5-day battery life, and completely waterproof. So this thing is made for you to train, right? So where Whoop came from, our CEO and founder, Will Ahmed, he played squash at Harvard, and he always felt like he never understood why some days he had a lot of juice and other days he didn't. So he did a lot of research into heart rate variability, and he found out that this has actually been widely regarded as one of the most accurate indicators of daily readiness. But there was no way to really measure it in sort of real time besides, very expensive things that only look at it at a point in time.
Right.
So Whoop was developed initially looking at sleep, and we can measure all these things during sleep. So Whoop tracks three main things. There are three main pillars. It's strain, which is how hard your heart is working, your recovery, which is how ready your body is to take on the day, and your sleep. You get a sleep score, and we tell you how much sleep you need. So we'll start with sleep, and we'll kind of work our way through
Sure.
all of these.
Yeah.
So sleep is what we do the best. Besides, a sleep lab, we're as accurate as it gets. It's third party validated by some of the most renowned sleep institutions in the world. We are staging your sleep. So you wear this. You don't have to say that you're going to sleep. You just go to sleep. We look at how much time you spend awake, how much time you spend in light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, all your disturbances, things like that, your sleep efficiency. So we're giving you very detailed metrics on a nightly basis. We're also telling you how much sleep you need. So once you have, let's call it 2 weeks on Whoop, even before that really, but 2 weeks is a very accurate baseline. We know how much sleep you get regularly on average. So that's where we're starting. Then based on how hard your day was, we add some time. If you haven't been getting as much sleep as you need, you add a little bit more time. And if you take any sort of naps, we will pull some time off. So that's giving you every single night how much sleep you need to reach your goals. And you can choose, do I just want to get by? Do I want to perform, or do I want to hit a peak performance? And those numbers are going to be a little bit different based on that. So it's custom sleep coaching for you. And then, you wake up, you see how much sleep you got, you get a sleep score, and it's simply a percentage of how much sleep did I get versus how much did I need. So that's the base level. Then you get a recovery score from that, right? So within the recovery score, it's 1 to 100%. I think at 0%, you might be dead. So 1 to 100%. And I think to be fair, I think I might be the only person that's ever gotten 100%. And that was in the early days of Whoop. It's on YouTube, actually. I don't know if anybody's seen that again.
Okay.
But so again, we're always measuring you versus yourself. And the 3 main metrics we're looking at in that recovery score are heart rate variability, your resting heart rate, and your sleep quality and quantity.
Yep.
So I'll do a quick science lesson on those. Heart rate variability is looking at your autonomic nervous system, which is your sympathetic and parasympathetic branches, and they're speeding up and slowing down your body. Effectively, we're measuring in milliseconds. So we want to see a higher number relative to your number. So my average now is let's say 85. It's gone down since the pandemic and having an infant.
Yeah.
But when I started on Whoop, it was 50.
Right.
So obviously, you can improve over time.
Sure.
So it's just, if I know that my average day is 80, then a bad day for me is going to be 50, but I could go as high as 150.
Right.
So where my heart rate variability is relative to my baseline is indicating how ready my heart is to receive signals to either speed up or slow down.
Right.
Okay. So the higher the number relative to your baseline, the more ready you are that day. Your resting heart rate, obviously we want to see that trending down over time if you're trying to improve fitness, but that's largely just an indicator of cardiovascular health. And then that sleep number, you can go into deeper detail in the actual sleep pillar.
Sure.
And the last piece we'll look at is strain. So a lot of things out there, including your phone, if you're just walking around, that's counting steps, calories, all that type of stuff. External factors. So how fast did I walk? Whether you're playing golf and you have how far is the ball? How far did I drive this? Things like that.
Right.
The Whoop strain score is internal load. So if you and I, let's say we played the same round of golf, we walked and took the same amount of strokes, we're probably going to have a different strain score just based off of our physiology and based on our recovery score for that day. From a bigger perspective, I'll give a different example. If we run the same 3-mile run, same exact pace, we're going to again have different strain scores because we might have different physiology. If you're more of a power athlete versus endurance, things like that. So it's really what the strain score does is it showcases maybe where there's some weak spots are or what your best physiology is. And that could be helpful with anything really.
Absolutely.
Or what your stressors are. Honestly, now that we're going into the holiday, we usually see those strain scores just sitting at a higher level just from being around family that we don't have to be around all the time.
Right.
That's just the truth.
And I think too, when you look at the low-hanging fruit, when you talk about Whoop and what it measures, I think a lot of us can be better with sleep, right? There's no question about that. Even if we've got newborns, things like that, sleep becomes a little
Yep.
bit more harder to do, right? And then strain, I think there's a lot of things that we can control and there's a lot of things we can't control, right? But being able to quantify that with an actual strain number, right? To be saying, listen, this is where you're at currently. What do you need to do maybe from a recovery standpoint? What do you need to do from a training standpoint to maybe kind of alter based on how you feel? I mean, I think that's the fact that it's immediate feedback as well. Like, I think that's it's super important for whether you're a recreational athlete or an elite athlete. Like, getting that feedback is really important to allow you to figure out what your next step is.
Absolutely. And we want this to be as low touch and high information as possible.
Sure.
So we ought to detect activities. We ought to detect sleep, things like this. So you're not always spending time in the app trying to input things. And another thing that we haven't really touched on yet, but you have this ability to create your journal entries. So there's probably 100-ish different options of behaviors you can select that you might do. So whether it's caffeine consumption, when do you have it, alcohol consumption, are you taking melatonin, are you sharing a bed, are you sleeping in the same bed, all these different things.
Yeah.
And in the morning or any point during the next day, you answer these questions, yes, no, sliding scale of time, and we tie that back to your sleep metrics. So every single month, we're telling you how the behaviors you're performing are either impacting you positively or negatively. And then you can take the next action steps from there. But there's real concrete insight as opposed to, hey, here's just some data. Like, what do I do with it next? Well,
Right.
here's what you do. Like, you can make some changes or keep doing what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, I think, when you look at a lot of the wearables that are out on the market, they give you a lot of data, but then it's up to the user to figure out what to do with that data, right? Whereas it sounds like Whoop gives you a very, very strong indication as to, hey, these are some recommendations based on how you're feeling or based on how you're performing as to what you should do next. And I think that's really important because most people, they wear all these wearables and they look at steps, they look at all these different things, but they don't know what to do with it, right? And they don't know maybe how to
Yep.
track it over time, right? So I think the fact that Whoop can do that for you and give you a pretty concise answer as to, hey, listen, you didn't sleep great, your strain's pretty high, maybe we need to kind of focus a little bit more on the recovery aspect of things than just trying to kind of go balls to the wall, So I mean,
Absolutely.
I think those are all really important because, at the end of the day, a lot of different things are going to impact how we feel, and being able to quantify that, again, like we talked about with Whoop, it just gives people a better indication as to how they truly feel.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Data for the sake of data is not incredibly helpful.
Right. Sure.
And not, steps, for example. Yes, it's great to get people moving,
Yeah.
but it's 10,000. I think someone just pulled that out and said,
Right.
you should go do this.
Yeah.
As opposed to looking at the impact of like you said, sleep is the thing that's the most available, right? Everyone's able to sleep. You don't need to pay for it. How do we get better sleep and then move from there? Everyone's, either using stimulants or depressants to speed, we do the coffee in the morning and the wine at night because that's all we got to do to get through. But how do we try and, fix our circadian rhythm and get higher quality sleep so that maybe we only need a cup of coffee as opposed to 4 coffees before noon, things like that, and hydration, all these different things that are going to help us get better sleep. So
yeah. I think too, like when you look at their injury recovery standpoint, like, we deal with a lot of people who are recovering from injuries or dealing with stuff like that. And the first thing I always ask them is about their sleep. How are you sleeping? Are you sleeping enough? Are you getting at least 7 hours? And if you're not, we need to start there, right? Like you can do all the training you want, you can do all the rehab you want and all these different modalities. But ultimately, if you're not able to recover as best to your ability, then a lot of stuff that we're doing is maybe not doing it as effective as we could be if we were sleeping better.
Yeah, people forget the recovery portion of that's part of how you get stronger and fitter and learn new skills, right? Yeah. If you're working on your short game and you go out and you hit 200 shots,
right,
and then you sleep 3 hours because you're so excited, that's not necessarily great for muscle memory and recovering to do that, right? It's just as important, if not more important, than the work, right?
Absolutely.
And this will, what you can see with Whoop is is my body actually recovering? You don't have to live in the green. So we can go look at that recovery score.
Yeah.
It's by thirds, red, yellow, green.
Yeah.
If you're training hard and trying to make a change, you shouldn't live in the green. You're
Right.
probably going to be in the yellow.
Right.
What you don't want to do is just go yellow, 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 yellow. Okay, red, and I can't get out of the red because I've
Right.
just pushed on, pushed on, pushed on. We got to bounce back at some point, and then you push again, right?
Yeah.
It's climbing. We plateau a little bit, and then we go again.
Yeah.
So using the data to make the right choices for whatever your goal is.
Yeah.
Just like you said at the beginning, this doesn't have to be for somebody that wants to ride in the Tour de France. Like
Right.
if you want to be, just a better dad or friend or partner, like there's everybody's better with sleep. That's the
Right.
bottom line. Everybody's
question.
better with sleep.
No question about it. No question. So, Mike, maybe kind of tell us, and again, since you kind of, started, right when Whoop kind of broke ground there, like when did Whoop start to kind of notice maybe kind of gaining some momentum or some traction in the wearable space? Again, with all the wearables that are out there and technology the way it is, like how did Whoop, or where did you find Whoop kind of started to separate itself with regards to, maybe be able to kind of, find a lot of the people that they're looking for and be able to kind of provide a product that people are looking for there?
From the outset, we wanted elite athletes. We wanted the best people in the world at whatever they do using Whoop. And, in the very early days, like Michael Phelps and LeBron they got like the first iteration. Yeah. And it still needed a lot of work, but it's cool that that's how people are thinking of it. There were a lot of pro athletes that were kind of behind the scenes using Whoop when I joined. I feel like there are two real breakthroughs for us. Okay. One was when, so I guess Scott Stallings is really patient zero for the PGA.
Okay. Absolutely.
We can't forget that. People think about Rory and JT, but Scott Stallings is really the guy. And I think it could be because of our relationship in the CrossFit space. First. So, Scott's really into fitness, hangs out with Rich Froning and all that crew. Yeah. So he, I think once Scott convinced Rory and the crew to kind of hop on Whoop, I'm thinking, now time is it's a time warp, but right. I was playing golf on the Cape, and I was in the pro shop, and somebody looked at me and said, "Oh, I just saw Rory wearing that." And that was the first time that someone had just kind of noticed it and recognized it. And then right after that, we also had, we did Sober October with Joe Rogan.
Oh, nice.
And from that point on, it felt like, all right, this is Whoop is becoming a known thing. And it's not just pushing in these like little circles where, yes, people that understand performance are at the cutting edge. That's who it was at first. Yeah. Now it feels like we're breaking more so into the mainstream.
That's awesome. Yeah, and again, when you think about golf, Scott Stallings, you can't find a guy that I think likes fitness more on the PGA Tour than him. He's super into it, and I think, like you had mentioned, it sounded like he was the one to kind of push Whoop towards kind of guys like Rory and JT. And even though they get a lot of the recognition, you can't forget about Scott. I mean, the guy was kind of, he was doing fitness a lot sooner than the other guys were doing it as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's cool. This is an interesting crossover space. So there's these guys that work with the Buttery Bros. They're much more in the fitness space, former CrossFit HQ media. But they did a thing with Scott, and it's really cool to just kind of see how seriously he's been taking his training for a long time. And now everyone's kind of catching up. And I guess there's different versions, right? I guess there's the let me be fit so I can keep playing versus, playing well and at a high level versus the Deschambeaux of the world who are let me just blast the ball and hope that works out. So hey, it's all on the table. Like there's not one way to win, and I think that's proven over time. Yeah, lots of different games, and it works out. So
absolutely. And again, too, like I think when we talk about people using it in different manners and things like that, I mean, how you interpret the data and how you interpret it, like ultimately that's why Whoop is there, right? To help you kind of figure that out a little bit more, right? So if you just get all this data and you're like, well, my heart rate was up here, but I'm not exactly sure what to do, like and you might be kind of just spinning your wheels at that point in time, right? So I think the fact that Whoop gives you just a little bit more kind of maybe a push in the right direction, just allows you to kind of again figure out what you want to do from a performance standpoint, even just a day-to-day standpoint, to get you where you need to be.
It's really about like progressive fatigue too. And since we're talking golf specifically, if you're playing 4 days at a very high level,
Yeah,
it's not just the physical toll, it's the mental toll. So what can you do to eliminate sort of dips and over time? You know, I can talk personally about this week. I started pretty high in the green, and I'm barely out of the red right now. And nothing's crazy. Like the sleep's pretty good despite having the infant.
yeah,
But there's only so much you can do before you have to just hit the brakes and say, I got to take a day or two here to really just focus on building back up.
sure.
And over the course of a year or periods of time, or the state of the world, it's important to give yourself that breathing room to come back up and level off. Otherwise, it's really easy to find yourself in just being under recovered. People like to talk about overtraining. Overtraining just comes from being chronically under recovered.
No question. That's a great way to put it, because I think you're right. A lot of people like yourself, beginning of the week, they feel pretty good, right? But as the week kind of goes on, they start to kind of dip. And we're using green, yellow, and red as kind of an example there. Some people might even be green at the beginning of the week, right? They might be yellow and then potentially red midweek, and then all of a sudden they can never climb out of there, right? So
right.
I think, like you said, I think the problem too is, when you look at fitness and what fitness means to a lot of people, they just think that they need to keep pushing, right? Whereas, like you mentioned, overtraining is just chronically under recovered, right? So if you can't recover well, you'll never be able to kind of push as hard as you can in the gym, even though you're trying to do it every single day or whatever it may be. So that's really an important topic that I think a lot of people kind of misconceive, is that I need to keep training to get better and perform better. Well, yeah, but if you're not recovering to be able to kind of, complement what you're doing in the gym, then you're basically just beating your head against the wall. And that's not what you want either.
Correct. Yeah. It's hard for people to get over. I need to do something. I need to do something. Yeah. Okay. Go do like 30 minutes of yoga or something. Like do something that's restorative, that's still going to move you towards what you want. It's not nothing.
Right.
It's certainly not nothing.
Right.
So, how much are you hydrating? Like, we're throwing all this other stuff out there. Like, I just got to train. Pull back a little bit, and you'll be amazed what happens if you actually let your body fully recover. I think there's so many stories of people like, I was in such a hard training block. I haven't taken a day off in X period of time. And then they take like 10 days off and like, I PR'd everything. And yeah, of course you did. Because you actually let your body recover. You did the work. Now it's like, oh, finally, here you go. Here are your rewards.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes with any sort of performance, right? You can't, there's something to like being in like a flow state for sure. You don't necessarily want to be so recovered that, you're off because, you have too much juice. You got to find that sweet spot. Yep. But man, you gotta, if you're trying to go win the Masters, I imagine you want to be pretty ready.
Right. No question. Mm-hmm. So let's do this, Mike. So, we know a lot of PGA Tour players are using Whoop and maybe in some capacity. Maybe from your end, what are you seeing? Like what are golfers or PGA Tour players, or it doesn't matter, like golfers in general, what are you seeing from maybe some of the numbers that maybe you're kind of just seeing over time? Like, how are they utilizing it best? Are they using it on the course? Are they using it mainly just to see what the recovery is like or what their strain is like? Like, what are you seeing, and what are maybe some correlations that maybe can kind of just translate to golf there?
So there's a few things. The first thing that people don't realize is that playing around is more strenuous than you think.
Right.
The ups, the downs, especially if you're trying to play well. I don't think it's rare that anybody wants to go and just completely play terribly, right? Okay. Even if you're out with friends and it's just, hey, this is social, it's still not fun to lose 20 balls.
Right.
So that person probably might have the highest strain actually because of how stressed they are the whole time.
Right.
But so first off, recognizing that playing around is challenging. If you're playing multiple rounds, it's going to be very challenging on your body. So are you, the first thing is, how am I hydrating and how am I refueling just on the course?
Sure.
So we've seen people change their diet, just recreational golfers. I went from not eating anything, I just have like my water and a Gatorade and I roll, to, yeah, I eat something every like 6 holes, or, you know, I have a shake at the turn or something like that.
Yeah.
That's helping them perform better,
Sure.
particularly as you would normally fatigue.
Yeah.
I think there's that aspect to it, and people want to have a high recovery score. If this is their, like you said, the people that get out for 1 day a week, or 1 day every 2 weeks, 1 day a month, you want to make the most out of that.
Right.
And what we've seen across all Whoop data is, you know, such positive performance trends correlated to higher recovery scores. Your muscles are ready, are more prepared. Your head's going to be more focused. You can think clearly. You're going to be able to execute the way you want, as opposed to leaving a bit more to chance. You know, the more fatigued you are, the more that the cognitive aspect is going to get disconnected from where you want your body to go, and things like that. So we're working with TPI on a couple different golf specific metrics on, you know, what does it look like in terms of, you know, how do we recovery score relative to, you know, fairways hit in regulation, and, you know, the accuracy of where your ball goes, or how far it goes, or, you know, how many putts on average it's taking. That's versus, you know, red versus green. So we want those metrics for ourselves too. We know we've done it in other sports, and we want to continue to highlight to people there's a huge difference between playing recovered versus under recovered. Doesn't really matter you know, what level of golfer you are.
Yeah.
You know, we want you to go out and we want to help you have your best round that you possibly can. At least have a good time.
Yeah, right. I mean, let's be honest. Golf's supposed to be fun, right? As much as we want to play well and not lose 20 balls, like you mentioned, you know, golf is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to enjoy it, right? And I think the important part with that too is, you know, when we look at it from our end too, we see a lot of golfers who just kind of rush to the course and don't warm up, and, you know, they get to the first hole, they take a couple of practice swings, and then they try and swing as hard as they can on the first tee, right? And then they shank it, and all of a sudden, like, it's just, again, you get up to the wrong start while in the first hole, right? So I think, you know, having some objective feedback and some data to kind of give you an idea, say, hey, listen, the more recovered you are, or at least the more prepared you are, the more likely you are going to be able to perform a little bit better on the course there.
Yeah.
So
I'm also that guy that shows up with no warm up. I usually have done a warm up. I've done a workout prior, and I'm just like, well, my body's warm, and then the first shot's terrible. But by about hole 3, I'm good.
There you go. That's it. See, sometimes there's a little bit of a ramp up for people, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know, Mike, I'm interested to maybe kind of hear what your thoughts are. So, you know, guys, obviously we spend a lot of time in performance, but we also spend a lot of time in the injury recovery standpoint. So, you know, maybe, I don't know, are you seeing Whoop being used by, let's say, PTs, chiros, like massage therapists, you know, people who are on maybe the injury side with their clientele or things like that with their athletes, to maybe give them a better feel as to, hey, maybe what's the treatment should be for today, or what do we want to do this day versus another if it hadn't recovered well, or things like that. Are you seeing that at all?
Absolutely. And I think that's part of that. That's definitely something we're trying to push even further. Sure. We want to make it accessible to anyone that's working with athletes or individuals, PT, training, you know, one-on-one training, things like that, to better inform that day. Yes. So it's one of those things where everybody, from the individual standpoint who's wearing Whoop, everyone has that moment where they didn't necessarily believe the data and they went and did something, and then they messed themselves up. And they're like, okay, yep, this is real. You know, if we have people who can also understand data and look at someone who might be a little more stubborn and be like, no, you need to do this. Yeah. And we've seen people with chronic pain use, or people that are treating chronic pain use Whoop to see if what treatment they're giving is working.
Sure.
You know, PT for sure. On the flip side, when you get injured and you might not know it, we see that recovery score dip because you basically can't sleep. Right. Or you're going to get lighter sleep. You can't slip into that deep sleep. Right. So we've seen that when people have quick injury, you know, whether it's, you know, a shoulder, elbow, knee, anything, neck, you're going to see something happen immediately. And then if you work with a PT or chiro and that gets released, how quickly that recovery score can come back up.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's cool. And I think that's something that, we're kind of looking, again, what can we do from a competitive advantage standpoint to kind of be ahead of the curve, right? Yes, again, when all of our clients come in, we give them readiness questionnaire scores. How are you feeling? How did you sleep? Things like that. And again, it's subjective to them, right? But if they have data, right, that says, okay, well, you say you feel like this, but yet your Whoop score tells a different story, then that might potentially alter what we want to do that day from either a training or a recovery standpoint. And especially too with a lot of our clients that are maybe further down the line there, and maybe our reconditioning or improving capacity, get back to a higher level to reduce re-aggravation rates or things like that. Like that's where we really want to know. Like if they're in the yellow or the red and they've got like practice or they got a competition or something like that, like can we use that data to determine whether or not, hey, should we be doing this or should we not be doing this? Right? Because ultimately, if that data tells them a different story than what they feel, or maybe that data tells them what they think they feel currently, like, yeah, I kind of feel sluggish today, then hopefully they can relay that information to us and then we can make a better collaborative decision as to what they need to do that day, right? So I always kind of look at it from that standpoint too and figure out, okay, well, how can we best serve our clientele to give them, information that is well worthy of making sure that we can get them to where they need to be as fast as possible.
Absolutely. And I love how you're thinking about utilizing the data and really collaborating, bringing the individual in as part of the process.
Right.
And that's important anywhere, is making people feel like they are part of it as opposed to, hey, just do this because I'm saying it.
Right.
People are doing that now.
Right.
But why? People are getting smarter. They want to know why. Data is just more and more integrated into our lives on everything.
Right.
So if you can explain to them, hey, look, you want to stop getting these nagging injuries, you got to stop letting yourself run into the red for 4 days at a time and expect and wonder why you tweak your back on the fifth hole. Like it's really basic stuff. So it's the more voices out there to say, hey, recover, trust me on this one.
Right.
We're going to have healthier people. And that's the goal, right? There's some people that just do enough to get you back in. But I think really the goal is giving people tools to keep themselves healthy while still checking in and then reaching a new level, right? So it doesn't just have to be, so let's fix the problem first, build you back up, and then get you to a higher level.
Right.
As opposed to, I'm just doing enough to so you can F yourself up and come back.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like they I think a lot of times, healthcare in general, everyone's about getting people out of pain. And don't get me wrong, that's a huge part of the puzzle, right? Getting people out of pain is important. But then once they're out of discomfort, like then what are you doing, right? To help kind of recondition them, to kind of build them up, make them more durable. And that's an even more important, crucial aspect that I think is lost in the recovery process, because once people think they're out of pain, they don't feel like they need to do anything anymore, right? They can just go back to CrossFit, they go back to golf and hit dozens of balls. And again, a lot of things, what we kind of talk about with our golfers are, what's your practice routine like? How many balls are you hitting per week? Like how many times are you swinging? Because if you've got low back pain and you're still doing the same practice routine as prior to the injury, we got to reevaluate some of the stuff that we need to do to make sure that you can get back to that recovery that we're looking for.
Yeah, I always use my parents in this example, since they moved to Florida a few years ago when they retired, and they went from playing like some golf to a ton of golf.
Sure.
And then all of these things started creeping up, and I'm like, well, how many rounds of golf are you playing?
Right.
Like, are you doing anything to counterbalance this one rotation to the side at all?
Right.
No. It's fine. I think I'm fine. I just got to swing more. No. Like, play less golf, please. And I'm going to give you these movements that are going to try and correct you a little bit.
Yeah.
But my mom particularly is the queen of, I don't know why my body hurts. I just walked 9 miles. So she used her Whoop day. She got like a 20 strain every day. God bless her. She's never going to slow down, but she's playing better golf now, at least.
That's good. Listen, the mind is willing, but sometimes the body isn't always agreeable to what you want to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's do this, Mike. Let's transition to our what's in the bag segment. So we always love to kind of hear what guests are swinging on the show. So maybe give us an idea as to what's in your bag. What are you swinging from? Drivers, woods, iron set, putter, all the way down.
I'm paying all the way through, and I've got an old Nike putter. So I have I have a custom set since I'm a big
I was
guy,
gonna say you
six
must have a
seven.
custom set there, being 6'7".
Yeah, a little bit longer, thicker grips. It's honestly has made it a game changer for me. I was playing with, I think I was playing with the same like Wilson POS clubs I had when I was like 14. I just kept getting them extended,
Right.
and I was like, why am I not getting any better at this? And I ended up I was swinging so hard, the clubs still weren't long enough, and now I can actually just like swing like a human being. And it's great. I finally understand over the last few years, how
Yeah.
people actually, hey, be a little bit, not as hard, man, not as hard.
Right. For sure.
So it's amazing how that happens. And no, the pinks have been great. I enjoy them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said about being custom fit, especially for a guy like yourself who's a little bit on the taller side. Yeah, having a custom set is probably a good thing for you.
Yeah. To be fair though, I don't play enough right now that it makes a huge difference if I rent a set and it's too small.
Sure.
Versus when I need a couple of rounds.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. Let's do our shotgun round. What we're going to do is going to ask you a bunch of golf-related questions. You're going to do your best to kind of answer as best as you can. If you want to explain, you can explain. Okay?
All right.
All right. Who's a favorite golfer for you?
I feel like everyone's favorite golfer is Tiger Woods, but
Sure.
I think the person I want to hang out with if I was going to play around is Ricky Fowler.
Oh, for sure. Right. Guy just
love Ricky. I just want that guy to win, but I love Ricky.
I know. Same here. You can't help but not root for the guy for sure.
Yeah, love that guy.
How about a favorite golf brand for you?
Are we talking?
It could be clothes, it could be equipment, it could be anything.
I'll say Whoop.
Okay.
Right.
There you go. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, it's tough. I think from like a clothing perspective, I wear a lot of Nike stuff. The shorts fit me well.
Sure.
As much as I try and make the Travis Matthew work, my legs are just a little bit too big for the shorts. Yeah. So sure. I'm trying so hard, but it just unfortunately doesn't work.
I mean, you can't go wrong either way. Whether it's Travis Matthew.
But I'll stick with Whoop though.
There you go. Perfect. How about like a preferred drink or snack while you're playing golf?
So I always have these vitamin water zero, like the lemonade flavor.
Nice.
And I think that's largely because that's what my parents keep in the fridge. But I always have like 3 waters and then probably 2 packs of trail mix.
There you go. Yep.
And then sometimes I'll even bring like a pack of like a to-go protein, depending on how hungry I am. There's no way I'm making it through 18.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how
I get hungry like every 45 minutes. Right. So it's a problem for me.
Yeah, I don't know how people get through a whole round not eating something. It's amazing to me.
So yeah, I'm always, but when it's over, we got to get food immediately.
No question. 19th hole is usually a place I usually stop pretty often there for sure.
Yeah.
How about par 3 or par 5 for you?
I think 3.
Okay.
5. I know that 5s hypothetically are easier, but I don't hit the driver well enough to capitalize, and actually hit my irons and wedges very well. So nice. It's going to be a 3 for me.
Nice. How about cart or walk?
Oh, I think cart.
Yeah.
I think listen, cart.
If you're playing all day, every day, like, yeah, walking is great. But like, if you're just there enjoying around, sometimes having a cart, maybe some music in the cart, there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah. That's the thing. I wish every place allowed music. My best friend and his family they're in Palm Desert, and nice. People have their own golf carts, which is unique to from where my parents are.
Sure.
So to just be able to like roll out, you got speakers built in. I was like, oh, this is how you should be playing golf.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our satellite locations at a private club here in Rochester, and a lot of the guys live right on the course, and they have their own personalized carts, rims, speakers.
That's the life.
That's the way to go. That's for sure. All right, how about favorite movie, Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore?
I saw this one. I think it's about time in your life. Happy Gilmore was like a movie I watched when I was sick and like 5 years old. And I was like, I can't believe this movie exists. It's amazing. Right. It's rewatchable always. It's great. I think as I've gotten older though, I don't know that there's a movie I quote more all the time than Caddyshack.
I know.
So
hard not to.
There's so much perfection in how ridiculous it is, and how it just kind of like this stuff just like applies. I don't really know why, or maybe I
Right.
just throw these things random. My wife's probably like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But I think Caddyshack overall in the long haul.
Absolutely, no question. How about a favorite golf course for you?
I think it's Farms Neck in Martha's Vineyard.
Okay, nice.
It's very nice. It's probably one of the nicer courses I've played, and we go to the vineyard, once a year. It's where we went for our honeymoon. So,
Sure.
I guess what it would be 2019. Yeah, I'd never been like the first one off the tee on the day, so still a little bit of dew on the lawn, but
Sure.
Early September, right on the water.
That's awesome.
It was pretty outstanding. So
Yeah.
I think that's the one.
Yeah, can't argue with that. How about a favorite golf memory for you?
Favorite golf memory? Like a personal golf memory?
Yeah, either personal or professional. I mean, again, working with someone.
Honestly, I'd say my favorite is watching Tiger win the Masters last year.
Yeah.
It felt like such an insane thing that after all this time, it felt like it did feel to me like the weekend was done.
Yeah.
Everyone's watching. He's in the hunt. It seems real.
Yeah.
Everyone's watching. Cancel your plans.
Right.
So it's so rare for something like that to happen now.
Yeah.
Like it's like Tiger Woods and previously, I guess, like Game of Thrones. Like
Right.
there's just like there's nothing that makes you stop and say, I gotta watch this right now.
Right.
So
That's so true.
I think that in recent memory for sure
that's awesome. And it's so true. And again, I think it's great that it happened last year and not without fans. Like if it happened this year without fans,
Yeah.
I think that would be a letdown for sure. So it was great that it happened last year for sure. How about someone you'd recommend we reach out to be a guest on this show?
I did a podcast with Eric Anders Lang. I think he's great.
Oh, nice.
I think he's really interesting. I love how he kind of thinks about golf and the way he makes it fun.
Cool.
Similarly to the way that you're thinking of it from a performance perspective and keeping people healthy.
Sure.
The way he's kind of like turned it into like a celebrity type of thing, and that he keeps it light, which is and he's just very real.
Right.
So I think from an authentic standpoint, he's great.
That's awesome. Well, maybe we'll have to maybe kind of connect us and try and get him on the show at some point. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
All right. So Mike, we appreciate your time, but maybe, finish up with some words of wisdom. Again, I think, when we talk about Whoop and, we talk about in the performance side of things, if let's say the general public or let's say a consumer were to listen to this podcast, let me kind of break it down and tell people why Whoop would be for everyone, right? I think when we talk about elite athletes, things like that, we understand why we want them to have that, right? But why would, let's say, a general person want to potentially invest in something like Whoop?
So like we talked about a little bit earlier, everyone is trying to be better at something.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what that is. Everyone has a version of themselves they're trying to reach, or let's say optimize.
Yeah.
Optimize would be the 100%, but let's just say improve, right?
Yeah.
And it's very hard to improve things if you don't at least measure it to start with.
Yeah.
So really, what is measured can be improved.
Right.
So everyone thinks they are doing well. In college, I thought I could survive on 5 hours of sleep and then go row as, at my peak performance. And I wondered why I kind of run out of gas like 80% of the way through this workout.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. A lot of people, talking about they're sleeping less than they think they are. So let's say you said 7 hours earlier. Just because you spend 8 hours in bed, I can guarantee you are not getting 8 hours of sleep.
No
a lot of times, people are sleeping about an hour less or more than what they think. Yeah. So they're operating under this sort of false assumption, and they're wondering why they're fatigued. And all that's happening is over time, their body is acclimating to a lower level of performance. So what you think is A+ is really like a B- of what you could truly be. And you have no idea. So like I said, when I got on Whoop, my heart rate variability was 50. And then for my average, so that's a baseline of 30 days. And I was very fit then. Now I'm a different type of fit now. I do more strength training. I do a little bit less endurance work. One, because there's not as much time, but my heart rate variability at a peak was almost at 100. So over the course of 3 years,
Yeah.
behavioral changes that I made, not training. So take the training aspect out of it.
Right.
The behavioral changes that I made around sleep environment, hydration, really basic stuff. That's all I was really looking at.
Right.
Led to my body being ready more of the time and ready to perform whatever that is I needed. If I was in business school, my brain was ready.
Yeah.
When I got to Whoop, if I had to talk performance and then on a sales call, all these different things,
Yeah.
I was ready at a higher level.
Sure.
So it's understanding these things about your body and what can help you or hurt you.
Yeah.
It's as simple as, like, maybe you didn't even know that, like, a nutrition thing that you've been doing for years is actually, like, having dairy is not, we're not doing like gut health. But
Right.
if you, let's say you have like yogurt for dessert or something, you don't realize that you're like not getting any deep sleep, something like, things like
Right.
that.
Something
And
as
then you
simple as
pull it
that.
out,
Sure.
you're like, oh wow, this is this is low hanging fruit,
Yeah.
unbelievable. I've
Yeah.
never worn an eye mask before. Now I'm wearing an eye mask and I'm actually staying asleep. Really basic stuff. So everyone can get better at sleep. And right now, I think it's paramount for people to be taking care of themselves and giving themselves permission to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
You get tired, and the data is there that a lot of what people would call mental disorders or just anxiety and depression, a lot of that comes from not enough sleep.
Yeah.
And the world right now is in a state where it'd be really, really easy to have anxiety.
Yeah.
And let's amplify that with not enough sleep and
Right.
nowhere to go. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
control the things you can control and nail down that sleep and
Yeah.
taking care of yourself, and everything will be better from that. So
Yeah.
that is why Whoop is the best. You can measure this in a way that no one else can. You never have to take it off. So you are truly getting the 24/7, 360 picture of you.
Yeah.
And nowhere else can you get that.
And I think too, when you talk about the current state of what we're dealing with, when we talk about immune health, right, and immunity and immune function, like there's no way to make you more vulnerable than to get less sleep and to be more stressed and to be more anxious, right? So I think, when we talk about being able to be more durable and be more resilient to, let's say, illness, I mean, that's a great place to start, right? So, and again,
Yeah,
it's a
for
low-hanging
sure.
fruit that people just don't pay enough attention to, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And I think that's the big thing, keeping everybody healthy, keeping the people around you healthy.
Absolutely.
It's a big
Well,
thing.
well, Mike, one, we appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy and you've got a brand new baby and you got a lot of stuff kind of going on. But for those who are listening, maybe want to learn a little bit more about Whoop and maybe about you personally, like what's the best way they can reach out or contact you?
So if you want to learn more about Whoop, I would suggest going to whoop.com and going into the locker. So our locker is our blog where we publish pieces that we create ourselves, also some of our research stuff. So there's some very scientific things in there, and then
Sure.
there's some fun, how do I understand HRV? Our podcast is actually really great for that, particularly things around Whoop metrics. Our VP of Performance Science and VP of Data Analytics, Kristen Holmes and Emily Capitallupo, break all this stuff down. They're outstanding. I would highly suggest it if you're really curious. To answer probably any and all question you'd ever have.
Sure.
So
that's awesome. Well, Mike, we appreciate your time. Best of luck to you and your new family, and hopefully maybe down the road when you start to kind of maybe do some different things with Whoop, we'll bring you back on and we'll go from there.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the Pain Free Golf Performance Podcast. We'll catch you on the next episode.